You're not on all the cameras though.
It's the mic that counts, mate. It's the audio we need. Don't worry.
When he said clap, I just thought round of applause or something.
We're
all here.
Hi there, everyone. This is Adam here with the Hear2Listen podcast. Nice to have you back. I'm here with Max.
Easy.
With Leon.
Yo.
Jack.
Hello.
And we have a guest, Shaun.
Hiya.
Hello, Shaun. We'll get to you in a second, Shaun. We've just got a little announcement to get out of the way first. What's going on, Leon?
I am now officially a dad.
Oh!
Yes, you got
I was sweating then thinking I'm going to get the wrong one. I'm definitely going to get
it. You
the wrong
didn't want the wow one.
It would have worked. It still would have worked.
Imagine that.
50-50.
So yeah, now she's over a week old, healthy, drinking a lot of milk and keeping us up and pooping a lot. That's it, really. That's all she's doing.
Yeah.
So eat, sleep, poo, repeat. Eat, sleep, poo, repeat. That's just how it's going. So, but it's good though. No regrets. Looking forward to it. And yes,
The journey has begun.
yeah, it's made us happier and whatnot and stuff. So we're getting there.
There's plenty of people around like Max that can kind of give you some tips, I'm sure.
Comes with a fee. It's put a lot of strain on my life, this parenting. Like, if I'm going to share my success, it's going to come with a fee. Or a few babysit.
Go back to the older
fees.
podcast episodes.
Yeah, for free.
Yeah, can see, mate. Got a few grazing and beers coming through.
Oh,
mate. That's the stress coming out.
Person this week on programme. Went out to Weatherfield the other day, and first thing that she said to me, it's different though, because the time before that was about how much weight I'd lost. So that was like one compliment she gave me. This time it's how many grey hairs I had in my beard. So it's like, let's just keep getting better.
Just picking you apart.
Picking me apart. I'm like, cheers, mate. It used to make me feel so good when I used to hang about with you. But yeah, no. How about you, Sue, mate? It's the grey hairs, the wrinkles that come, stress and life just takes its toll.
But equal reward, surely.
100%.
If
Yeah,
not
I wouldn't
more, I don't
change
know.
it. Yeah, definitely. 100%. I think I said it on the last pod, I wouldn't be here now if I didn't have my kids.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way, not in a chance. No way. I'd still be sitting. Well, actually, I wouldn't, because of the pandemic, and not many of the people that sit around the bar tables are not able to do so as much.
Well, till 10. Till 10
still
PM.
be, yes, till 10 p.m. I actually want to drive past a pub at 10 just to see the rush and see what it's like. I bet town centres are like a good place to be at 10, just because the atmosphere. I bet the energy's all live. Everyone's like, hey, screw COVID, screw COVID. I bet it's like a proper like rally for like people that just want to just have fun. And then it just goes quiet. And then it's like that tumbleweed just comes floating across the town centre.
So can you get in trouble for being out after 10, or is it just being in the
There's
bars?
fines. I don't know. It's
I actually don't know.
Nah, I've heard there was a guy on last night. This is where I should really sort of make notes on this sort of stuff, especially if I'm going to bring it up. It was for the Labour Party, and they were basically asking him what he would do or what the Labour Party would be doing in this situation. And all he kept saying was, rather than, I'll tell you where it was on Gogglebox. It was them watching the news on Gogglebox. So it wasn't even me watching it, because I don't watch the news.
So
I was watching Gogglebox. I was watching people watch the news. That's just life. But yeah, he would just not, like most politicians, he just sort of diverted around the actual answer. And all he kept saying was, we are just going to support the government's decisions. He didn't say what the Labour Party would do, because you can understand, actually, they probably don't want to sort of cause like an uproar of, actually, these guys are going to be doing that. Why don't we go with the Labour and, like, you know, get all that sort of stuff up on the table again. At the same time, just answer the question, yes or no. Do you think that was a right decision? No. What was? But they can't. They're not allowed, and they get told what to say. But they did speak about fines. There's like, I've heard £3,000 fines for certain things, £10,000 fines. Anyone else heard anything?
I saw, so it's £200 if you have if you have more than 7 people in your house.
Yeah.
And then I saw a meme, and it was like, so all you have to do is invite like 40 people and charge them £5 each on a deposit. So if you get caught, the fine's covered.
Say that again a bit slower. Oh, actually, you can just rewind. That's a really good bit of information there. You can sort of use that tip. It's that life hack right there.
There we go. You didn't hear it here.
You did.
Yeah.
But you didn't.
I take no responsibility for that if anyone that's watching.
That's just something we've seen. But I also seen that the Seven Dwarfs are now screwed, aren't they? Pretty much. Like that's been all over social media. And they actually, is that facts?
Got a quarantine sneezy.
Yeah. I haven't heard that one yet. I just heard that happy is no longer happy. But it's not as good, is it? It's not as good. So yeah, well done. All right.
All right.
Anyway. Jack, you making notes on this? Oh!
Nice.
Actually, yeah, do you want to explain why Jack's just sitting there in the corner?
Because he's not on mic at the moment, bless him. That's just occurred to me. So, yeah, we've only got 4 mics. That's it.
Wop, wop, wop.
So Jack's kindly...
Micless.
Taking the blue seat.
Yeah, kindly taking the blue seat, but also volunteering to do like notes for us for the pod and doing our like little producer bit because Emily's not here at the moment. So to lead on to the current podcast, what I want to do is kind of set this up a little bit by just giving everybody a bit of a history. So one of the things I'm quite glad about in my life is I've always had interesting jobs, and one of those jobs was working for the alcohol dependency treatment program. It was a rehab-based program. Think of it as a rehab, but in prison. So it was under a company called RAPT, the Rehabilitation of Addicted Prisoners Trust. So they helped a lot of people in the prison system and beyond and after with addiction issues. So be it alcohol, drugs, mostly chemical, I would say. So the program that I was on as a staff member, I should probably make sure I say that. Yeah, as a staff member. Yeah, the job title was counsellor, and it was wonderful to finally be a counsellor because I trained as a counsellor, but I'd done drug work before it, which wasn't fully counselling. But then I got to do that in the alcohol dependency treatment program. So we were a small team. It was a pilot program, and pretty early on, I met Shaun. So Shaun had come to us as one of 12 or 10, I can't remember, it's 12 or 10 now, this is going back 13 years
12.
now, 12, thank you, Shaun. And a group of men, it was a male prison, who all had varying issues with alcohol, let's say, okay, so, and what was attached to that was varying issues of offending behaviour as well, be it, you know, a punch up in a pub and things got out of hand. We had a guy on that had killed someone by drink driving. We'd had a few guys that were like, I don't really think alcohol's really a problem, but I'm going to do the program just to see what's what. So there was a lot of different motivations for getting on the program, and one of those sometimes was to please their probation officer. You know, if a probation officer says like you've got to do a program to sort of reduce your risk of reoffending, was mostly the motivation for that. We were aware of that as a team. We knew that, but we also had this mindset of, okay, that's their initial mindset, but we can still get them. Do you know what I mean? We can still help them change. We can still like try to change their lives. Even the guys that were like, I have a few beers every now and again, and you know, our mindset was like, well, you're in prison, so you know something's definitely kind of wrong somewhere there.
No one was made to attend. This was all
yeah, it was all. I guess it was always voluntary, but maybe you can speak a bit more about that, Shaun, about you know what the sort of conditions that are in place for you to end up on the program. So, just want to bring you in at this point, you know, and just sort of talk a bit about like you know you're in prison and you've had how many years in jail at that point?
12 years.
12 years before you've even got to us. As a new program, as a pilot program, you're one of the earliest guys that got onto the program, and I just want to ask you sort of what's it like, sort of the moments leading up to that, but actually just turning up on that first day.
Well, a bit of background, I got sentenced to a life sentence for murder in 1995. In 2007, I was in open conditions, about to get released, and I went out on a Christmas home leave, entered a pub, got drinking, got involved in some madness, and I got backstaged, and basically that meant I went back into closed conditions. And whilst there, you know, I was absolutely devastated. I was literally inches away from getting out, and I met up with an old drinking buddy of mine who was talking about RAPT and some of the stuff that Adam's described, and he gave me some home truths, and he said, look, get on this program because it's going to save your life. It's going to get you out of prison. So all of the things Adam sort of alluded to about the tick box system, just pleasing probation officers, all of that was basically my incentive to get on the program. So I, you know, made the appropriate connections with the likes of RAPT, got referred to the program, got interviewed, got on. And I think from day one, my attitude to the program really changed because I needed help. And I think from day one, I kind of bought into this program. So that was that, really.
So like straight away, as soon as you got there day one, you was open to everything that these guys were saying. Is that right? Yeah, that's good.
Was part of that the sort of the you'd done so much work up until that point, and you'd made that mistake, whatever you want to call it, and you've kind of got busted back. And I wondered if could it be said that you'd sort of deluded yourself up until that point, that you don't really have a problem?
Yeah, I'd made great progress. You know, I'd got myself sober, but you know, in them kind of circles, they talk about sort of being sober but not being clean, not having sobriety and stuff like that. I had no peace. You know, I was more than likely to be released and start drinking again. Yeah. So getting on there, I kind of realised that I have got a problem. I'm now in a forum where it's okay for me to admit that I've got it. Something that I was always trying to pretend I didn't. You know, I knew I had a problem with booze, drugs, everything else, the crime. But it was only when I got there and started going through writing things down and looking at things and rubbing them out and scratching them out and thinking, nah, that's bullshit. I'm going to put in a little bit more. I remember Adam sort of set me a task one day of a farewell letter to alcohol, and I've still got that. You know, and that for me was the final nail. Yeah. I'd said goodbye.
Yeah, and it was certainly a large part of the program was writing stuff down, and there's a certain value in that as well, where you can kind of see it and you can read it over and you can kind of experience it, and little bit of a sort of outside looking in, because I think what you said earlier about, like, while you're in it, you're telling yourself it's not really happening or you don't really have a problem, but then you kind of look at it and go, hang on a minute. And you know, that exercise that I might have set you was just one of our kind of tools that we can pull out, and it seemed sort of the most suitable for you. And what was it about that exercise in particular that changed or adapted your mindset then?
I think it was accepting that I'd had the problem, and coming to terms with the fact that something needs to change. And I liked drinking. You know, I really enjoyed it. I liked all the social aspect of it, but my drinking was, well, it was dangerous. You know, it led to me being in prison. Yeah. And I think it was seeing it up front in my face. That was it. You know, I'd accepted it there and then, and I think doing that, because I remember reading it to Adam and crying, and I think that was, you know, the image and everything else, trying to be tough and letting myself go. I was always worried about, if I let myself go, that's it, I'm going to be like a mess on the floor and there's going to be no one there to pick me up. But being in them kind of rooms, it made me feel like, you know, it's okay to be like that. Yeah. You know, people are not going to judge me. People are
almost empowers you to be like that, because you know that they're there to support you. Like, and they're all also pretty much in the same boat, similar sort of boats, and going.
Yeah, and letting off them kind of feelings now is something that I don't struggle with now. I kind of look forward to having little moments where I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. Yeah. And, you know,
the thing is, it's obviously we have a lot of the idea of this was we have a young audience. We work with young people and stuff, and it's like, you're talking about sort of letting go and sort of not being worried about how you're perceived and how people look at you now, and keeping those emotions in. It's getting even harder and harder for young people to let go and bring down those barriers, just because of all the social media side of stuff. Like, people are so fake and put up this lovely, colourful, filtered image of this, that and the other. I know it's a little bit of a different sort of take on it, but they're just creating barriers and walls and then keeping all that sort of emotion in, causing so much more damage. But they've said for years, I think it's Mum, she's always saying to me, you need to let it all out, Max. You need to let it out. You need to have a release of all those emotions and blah, blah. And I'm that guy that's always like, you don't know what you're talking about, man. Like, you don't know. I don't need to do it. If I needed to cry, I'd cry. But then I'll watch, like, Nativity, like, with the kids. I think I brought this up not that long ago. It's a flipping Christmas movie, right? And it isn't even emotional. But I'm sitting there getting teary over something I shouldn't be getting teary. So I think there is definitely a build-up within myself. I think that's across the board. I think a lot of people struggle to let their emotions out, don't they?
Well, when I was a kid, you know, I come from a family of drinkers. My dad was a drinker, and life at home wasn't always rosy, you know. And coming out onto the streets where I grew up, in the times that I grew up, it was hard to sort of say this, you know. So what I would do, and I think I talked about this in some of the step work that I'd done, I'd pick fights with the hardest kid in the street, you know, just to cry.
Yeah.
You know, and people would say, what's he crying for? Well, he's just been duffed up by the big boy. Really, I'm not crying because I've been beat up by the big boy. I'm crying because of what's going on inside my front door.
Yeah.
You know, but like you say,
it's just how you deal with it and how you dealt with it.
You know, anyone ask, oh, how's things at home? Perfect. I got the greatest family, the perfect home setting. Really, it's far from that.
Yeah. And I think most are. Like there's some that look very, very nice and prim and proper, but this is the thing. This is, especially this day and age, everything's made to look so nice from the outside. Like no one knows what's going on behind closed doors today, and it's there's always been an element to that. But it's that's like blow my mind a little bit, because I never really think of that. Like you get bullies or people that are labelled as bullies, and there's always, like, I remember when I was at school, there's always a couple of lads, or one in particular, and I had quite a lot of beef with, shall we say. And I actually remember hiding in the nature reserve garden with the geeky students for about a 2-week period, because I was scared that this guy was going to kick the crap out of me. And he was the bully of the school. But in the job that I'm in now, and especially hearing stuff like what you've just said, it's like, there's a reason for that behaviour. Like, there's a reason why that guy was going around kicking everyone's head in. There's a reason why he tried to chuck someone out the window. Do you know what I mean? There's a reason why he's acting impulsive and doing all that stuff. And it ain't just because that's what he wants to do. There's something deep within that. And I think that's working with you, Adam, as well, and with Hear2Listen, that I've become more aware of that. But there's so many people unaware of that sort of stuff. They just look at the outside and sort of judge that book by the cover straight away without even diving in and thinking, actually, like, where's this come from?
I think it's hard as well. So if you're a young person and you're going through all these different things and you've never been taught to be self-aware, so like if no one's said, oh, why are you feeling like this? It's okay to cry. Then you're just almost fighting all your feelings all the time. So you want to be this person, but you don't understand how you have to feel to be that person. So you just go in sort of haywire almost. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also I wanted to ask you a question there, Shaun. So I've got a childhood friend that I grew up with, and like, so he's sort of been in and out of, like, addicted to being drugs and stuff like that. So I want to make sure I get this question properly. So what would you say, because he's gone to the point now where he's fallen out with his whole family, like no one likes him, he's lost his business, lost his job. What stops him from admitting that he has a problem, if that makes that?
I think what stopped me was the shame.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be, looked upon by myself really as having a problem, as being a failure.
Because everything you said about holding up an image and stuff like that, like when you're saying that, I was just picturing this guy in my head, and he is that guy, because he used to be like the funniest guy in the group when we were younger, like probably like the one that wanted to get into, he's not the guy to get into like trouble, but he'd like be the cheeky one, always trying to banter everyone all the time.
You talking about me?
Huh? Nah, mate, you're still here. But yeah, so I'd like, and I know a lot of people have tried to reach out to him to give him help and stuff like that, but he's got himself into a place that now no one's seen him for like over a year. I think
personally what stops people getting to that point is fear.
Yeah.
It's fear of being judged, fear of, the shame. It definitely was for me.
Yeah.
I tried to put on a pretense of being like the tough kid. I consider myself to be confident, but sometimes I was overconfident just to kind of fit in, and play down my problem side of my life.
Yeah. So like I said, yeah, that's now he's sort of disappeared and no one's seen him like for so long. All I can do now really is just hope that he's going through that period of like accepting that maybe he had a problem and he's going to come out, and hopefully I just hope that I can see him in like maybe a year or two time and he's fine and he's almost like his old self and just like fun and happy again. That's so. But yeah,
it's horrible, isn't it, when you think about it? But the thing is, it's true. It's like the fear. No one wants to be labelled an addict. No one really wants to be labelled a failure. And coming to terms with that, there's things that I'm still in denial of certain things, and it's like,
Oh yeah, I think we all are really.
yeah,
Yeah.
But then the worse it gets, obviously, the harder it's going to be to come to terms with that. So the longer you leave it, no doubt, it's going to get even more harder because you've been living with that for longer. It's like anything, you get stuck with that, don't you? And the longer you live with it, the deeper it sets into your body, conditions us in that way. Yeah.
Which brings us to acceptance, I think, as well. Like, so a lot of the program was based certainly on the first 4 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Some people might know Alcoholics Anonymous, but the 12 steps feature in all the different fellowships, be it, Cocaine Anonymous or Codependence Anonymous. There's so many different anonymous fellowships, they call them out there. And the first step is we admitted we were powerless over whatever it is, alcohol in this case, that our lives had become unmanageable. So there's a reason why that's the first step, and that was what was featured in the program. It was after we did a little bit of sort of intros and get people sort of comfortable, then we got into what you said earlier was the step work, which is where you're writing down examples that fit with that. So the there's different guys come on the program, and some of them might have been a bit more resistant, but I never felt that you were ever resistant. And there's a concept within the fellowships about rock bottom, about, you've got to that stage where the only way is up. And I felt perhaps you'd got that with the sort of the getting all the progress that you did and then bouncing back and all that. And it felt to me like you were just like, I need help. That, to me, that's acceptance. And there's a sort of power in that as well, because you're no longer fighting and being that person that's like, I can think my way through this, or, oh, well, I don't have a problem or anything like that. So it has to start with that first step. What do you remember about your step 1?
Well, do you know what? It was exactly as you just described. I came into the rooms. I'd already done a long time in prison. I got sentenced to a 12-year tariff, which means I was looking to get out. A life sentence in this country is 99 years, but then you get recommendations and you get tariffs. I got a tariff of 12, and I'd reached my 12th year, and I just had my first knockback, and that was, everything was soaring, everything was going nice, and that was my first knockback. And my knockback was based on the fact that when I sat on my parole board and they asked me how I'd address they talk about issues. And one of my issues obviously was alcohol. So on my parole board, it was a case of, what have you done to address your alcohol issue? So I told them everything they wanted to hear. I've been going to AA, I've been doing this, I've been doing that. I'd done none of it. So they knew this. I couldn't convince them. I couldn't lie or hoodwink them. And that is why I got the rejection. And it was the first time in the whole of my sentence that I'd actually gone backwards. So there was a realisation and acceptance there that, hang on, there's still work that needs to be done. And based on that knockback, I started drinking. And my drinking escalated to problematic drinking straight away. Every time I got a town visit, every time I got home leave, I was going out and getting full on drunk.
So how often would you get to go out?
Every weekend.
Every weekend, so
I knew all the tricks to get through the receptions at the prison.
Yeah.
The garlic, the polos, all this kind of stuff. Having only a couple of pints.
Yeah.
Because I liked being in and around the pubs. Home leaves was completely different. I'd go out, and from the minute I left the prison, I was getting absolutely smashed. And then obviously I got the recall. I got taken from where I was getting home leaves, I was getting visits, I had a pay job outside the prison, and then I'm now in full-on bang-up. And
So how long before you went to full-on sort of prison? So you had the home leaves and stuff. How long did you have that for?
About 3 years.
3 years.
So my life was slowly
Yeah.
becoming sort of normalised, if you like. I was making that sort of transition from prison back into society, forming relationships with people, making bonds with my family. My little brother was a little kid when I went to prison. He's a young adult at this point, making babies of his own. So, life was kind of nice.
Yeah.
But the only thing I hadn't dealt with was obviously my drinking.
Yeah. What about inside? Was there obviously you hear of drugs and stuff being brought into the prison and stuff. What about alcohol? Is that making its way in there?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
There's homemade alcohol,
Yeah.
ooch.
Yeah.
And that's I couldn't describe how they make it because I never really made it, and it wasn't something that I didn't go down. I smoked a bit of wacky backy whilst I was there and things like that, but I didn't really. It was only when I started getting back into outside that I was faced with the same problems. You know, the reality of my life. In prison, I was kind of ticking along quite smoothly like everyone else. Out there, I'm back in the rat race.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's the fear that kind of, you know, I was going out to having no mates because most of my mates are either in prison or dead or moved on. So I'm coming out into my town centre where I'm not known. I don't know no one. It all looks different.
Yeah, I know. See, I've
So
only
it became
seen stuff
scary.
like that on movies, like because you go in, it's one thing. You come out, whether it's 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. There's going to be massive changes that have taken place. I bet that was just a
So when you say
thing.
your hometown, so when you was coming out of prison to like spend the weekend, were you just going back like home?
I was in
Yeah.
open prison, literally 10 minutes from where I grew up.
Ah, okay, so you could literally see everyone that you saw
Yeah.
before and just almost slip straight back into the same circles. Is that right?
Yeah, more or less.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I can imagine that's hard to even distance yourself from that when you're just back there again. Yeah.
And then it all taken away, obviously, and then go into full on lock up, no leave, nothing, no visits, home visits or anything.
No.
And then you had how many years of that?
6.
So yeah, it's a long time. It's a long time. I can only imagine sort of what it'd be like. I when I stopped going out, for example, when I had the kids, I often used to look at that like I've just give up all my social life, everything. I distanced myself from the people that was toxic to me because I knew at that point I had a problem. I was doing all sorts of drugs and just not. You got a call from someone messing up our rotation on the cameras. Just thought I'd let you know that, and just vibrate. No, you don't even know what you want to know who it is, right? In-house joke, but that's
Yeah, I know it is.
Yeah,
I know it is.
It's gonna get anyway. But yeah, separate myself from that. I had to do that because I needed to just do that. But at the same time, I still went out and met up with them sort of once a month, and then when I did, you're talking a month, 2 months that I'd have a period of time where I didn't see anyone. Stuff changed massively then, so to be able to come out all those years later, you can see why some people come out and then boom, just get themselves straight back in, because it's not the same. It might be 5 years, 10 years, whatever it's been, but they get out, they haven't got that social network, that circle that they used to mix with. They're not known for and have the same respect on the streets as they once would have, and all that sort of stuff. Everyone's grown up and moved on. Yeah, so it's got to be tough. But you seem to sort of I'm talking to you now, and we had a chat before the podcast and stuff. For me, you just seem like you're back in. I don't know. Where are you mentally now? You feel like you're at the best it can be.
Best it can be. Yeah.
So yeah, just ask about prison. So some people, when they're in prison, do you think because you say come back out to the rat race, and then do you think people get comfortable in prison? I don't know if that's the right way to maybe not comfortable, but
it becomes a comfort zone, surely.
It becomes easier to be in prison because it seems more normal than it is to go back out in the rat race and try and fit in where they don't feel like they fit in.
I'm not quite sure about that, but because I was doing a long prison sentence, I had time, over a decade of kind of working my stuff out.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
You know, and the longer you spend in prison, the more you want to be out. You know, I always kept my eye on the gate. You know, I always wanted to be out, and I think if the people that are in and out, I don't think they're getting long enough sentences.
Okay.
You know, so you know, you're sitting in a cell for 12 years. You do a lot of thinking. You know, you kind of you.
I can imagine that's a lot.
Yeah.
I suppose if you went in for a year or 2 years and then straight back out with your mates again, doing the same stuff.
After a year, you're pretty much the same person. You're just a year older.
Yeah.
You know?
You're talking a decade, that's a different ball game, isn't it? Completely different ball game.
There's another concept in 12-step treatment and the fellowships about not people find their way into addiction because they're unable or ill-equipped to deal with life on life's terms. And one of the arguments for sort of jail is that people go in there and they don't have any responsibilities. They don't have anything to do other than sort of follow a strict routine. You read your sort of Daily Mails. Oh, they're fed. They got TV. They got, it almost sounds like luxury sort of thing. And I've wondered about that. I've wondered about if you look realistically at the population of prisons, the amount of, say, addicts in there for whatever kind of addiction that might be that are in jail, I feel it was a very high proportion. Yeah. So you could argue that there's a very high proportion of people that are in jail that do not know how to do life on life's terms, which
absolutely.
is kind of okay.
Yeah, I would say 99% of people in prison now have got an addiction issue.
Really?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't want to be in prison now. I was at the stage where I never saw it as home, but I was very comfortable. I was a very well adapted prisoner. I had I wasn't on a pedestal or anything, but I went about my business my way. I didn't sort of buy into this is the way I'm meant to behave, or this is the way I'm meant to act, and a lot of people in prison are like that. They kind of buy into this, I must behave this way, this typical prisoner way. And from day one, I never did any of that. And some of the things, I became a peer mentor.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bit taboo in prison because that's sort of buying into the opposition.
Like the system almost.
Yeah. And I can quite easily say and quite happily say now that's the greatest thing I ever done. Because they say in the rooms, you get it by giving it away. And the more people was coming to me, I kind of felt not big-headed or
I know what you mean.
But I found fellowship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it makes you feel good. The thing is, we were talking about mentoring the other day, just giving someone else a little bit of a stepping stone and helping. Like, that comes under the same sort of bracket when you say volunteering, that the feeling you get from giving something back and help someone else. Is that what you're on about? Like, people coming to you and you're giving them guidance and all that sort of stuff. I can imagine. And that sort of empowers you it's got to be an empowering feeling as well.
Because I'd done a lot of courses prior to getting on an alcohol dependency treatment program. I knew how to do the thing, and I was comfortable in groups. A lot of the lads we had on the ADTP were they was a bit frightened to read their step work out, or they was a little bit nervous about speaking within the circle. But I'd done it a lot already, so I was kind of good with that. But Nikki Adams, one of the counsellors, or I think she was the manager at the time, pulled me in on my review afterwards to give me a bit of feedback, and it was, do you want to be a peer supporter within the group? And it was a 6-week slot. It was only meant to be for the duration of the next programme because they ran for 6 weeks with a 2-week gap. And I think I stayed on the 83 years.
Yeah. 3 years later.
There's a reason behind that.
Yeah. And, best 3 years of my life.
Nice.
And yeah, absolutely the best 3 years of my life. And I was starting to get a bit of a reputation around the prison as not being the tough guy from the estate up the way, but the go-to person for a bit of advice. And I started to listen to my own advice. When someone comes to me, oh, I've got this problem, I would go, right, this is what you need to do. This is where you need to go. And I was really sort of filling my toolbox,
Crazy.
Got to give it away. That's where the concept give it away to keep it. You keep your recovery by sharing, by kind of getting your stuff out.
I've often said this to you, though, Adam, like, especially on Health to Mind when we do those workshops. I'm talking to young people and these students. They are identical to what I was like at school, and some of the stuff that I've got going on. And I'm giving them this advice or giving them some sort of coping mechanisms, or telling them that actually this can be really good. Not telling them they have to do it, but giving them all these little resources and stuff, techniques that we use. And at the same time, and I said to you last year, I think this year's been the only year, and I'm slacking since lockdown, that I've actually been embedding them into my own routine, my own life. I'm telling them, and I'm showing them all these amazing things that they can do to make themselves feel better, to evolve them, whether it's in their confidence, their self-esteem, their well-being, or whatever. It might be just to get them to do meditation, and we're like talking and praising about how good it can be for you to just get in tune with yourself. And at the same time, I'm not doing it. I'm like, but then, like you say, the more you say it, I'm like, I'm going to start doing what I'm preaching, because actually this stuff does work, and it does. Like, but sometimes you don't want to listen to yourself, do you? And you don't want to do what you know is good in mind, but actually it takes for you to see the benefits of what someone else has gained from it, and they go, actually, do you know what, that I said that. Why haven't I been doing it? Like, I ain't meditated for like 2 months. Like, I was starting to feel good working out every other morning, like doing a little bit of exercise. I don't do it no more. We're out there telling other people to do it. It's like, get outside, get active. Like, what are you doing, Max? Like, what are you actually doing? Nothing.
Yeah, it's like, so when you talk about meditation, I think meditation can be like anything that you do to feel good. So like, as an example, the other day, obviously I had a kid last week, a bit tired. Kareen had to go to the doctors just to take the baby to get their normal checkups. And I went out for a bike ride, and I just needed to get out the house, just like get in my own zone, just be out on the road. And
so you didn't shut your eyes and ride your bike?
No, I didn't shut my eyes. I was looking where I was going, but like just being out there, just like, I don't know, getting out of breath and just working on your body or whatever, just being out there. That's like meditation. So some people might have an argument at home and then need to go for a walk down the shops and like just to clear their head, and that's just like, that could be their meditation.
Yeah,
so I think
I know
everyone's got to find
100%,
what works for them as well. So, but
Yeah.
also,
Go on.
and I was gonna say, I think when you're younger, when you're talking about mentoring, like, I feel like sometimes if they, like young people, when they're bad or what we call bad, or what schools might call bad, they don't see that as a problem. So like, if you were saying that you were naughty when you were younger, not anywhere, but you alluded to it. So like, if someone told you all the things that you were just saying, would you have listened to them back then, or would you started working? Because like, yeah. Maybe.
It all depends, doesn't it? It depends on who's saying it and how they're saying it, and also whether or not you actually think it's a problem at the time. Back when I was at school, it wasn't a problem. I was just a cheeky chappy.
Yeah.
Didn't like school. ADHD to another level. Locked me in a cupboard, or wouldn't let me and Stan in the same room. It's just I weren't like the guy next to me chucking chairs out the windows and stuff like that. I had respect for elders and stuff. I was just a little like class clown. It's a nice way of putting it. I was like just full of energy. Oh God, Max is back, to the point where they just couldn't keep me in school, so they just asked me to leave and come back and do my exams. But you look at all my reports and stuff; they've all got such nice words. Like, got huge potential, such an amazing student, just laxing or this and blah blah blah. There was always like almost like that shit sandwich you tried to give me this morning, Adam. But then I beat you to it and said it myself. Do you remember? There's always that on my reports. There was nothing like, I didn't get expelled and they like hated the sight of me. I still bump into teachers now and they sort of like, we have that chat. They just couldn't control me. I don't think they knew, or they obviously did, but they couldn't use rulers and that to hit people no more. But when I was at school, so I think that probably worked for them, like my dad's generation and that, because he got belted. Like, they got hot spoons, they had rulers over the hands, and we didn't get none of that. And now you look at kids in schools now, it's like, and even parents, like talk to parents, kids know that parents can't do anything or legally can't do anything, whether it's a good idea or whatever. They know, it's been conditioned into them that they're born. Like, so your little girl's going to, like, first word she'll say is, "You can't hit me." That's illegal. Right? But because of that, like, they know they can get away with more. It's like, we've been in many a schools, Jack, and now one of the schools I'm thinking of, we went there for this lunchtime stall, and we was in the canteen, and we're trying to get year 11s to sign up to the programme that we've got going out in summer. And it was pretty dead. There was obviously people eating, but we just standing there like a couple of lemons, like doing nothing in this hall. And the headmaster, or someone, it wasn't the headmaster, someone come over, it was a teacher, and said, "Look, boys," he goes, "you're probably best off going out in the playground." He goes, "The year 11s all hang around out here." So he's like, "Yeah, come here." So he showed us, we walked through the canteen, we went through the door, get round this corner, and there's about 15 lads, and they've got this car tyre, and they're all just launching it up in the air, trying to get it on the roof of the building. And the teacher's like, "Hey, boys, no. And they're like, "F off, you pedo." Beep, beep, beep. And honestly, me and you looked at each other and we were like,
And
nothing happened. Like, the teacher done nothing about it. Like, it's like, I don't know if he was a cover teacher, whether he was someone senior, but it's just the way that they got away with speaking to a member of staff that way. Disrespectful. There's guests there. Obviously, me and Jack, we're not part of the school. They know that we're not. But then, like I say, kids know that actually, what's going to happen? There's no slap on the wrist. There's no real punishment other than, all right, you might not be able to come back to this school. But to some kids, if they've got stuff going on at home, if they're not in the right mindset, if they've got issues within the household or within their own minds, they don't give a crap, do they? They want to leave school and
Do
stuff.
you wonder if that was the difference? Because you talked about having ADHD and you're a bit lively, all that sort of stuff, but you still had sort of like a moral character, and I put that down. Knowing your family, I can see where that come down from. You know, is the difference between like the ones that are a bit playful and got loads of energy, but the ones that are actually causing mischief, the difference between like what's going on at home or what they're dealing
Could
with?
be. You
Like,
can only answer for yourself, I suppose. But I mean, I know what you're saying with me. I did have a lot of support. I left school early and I was hanging about with, it's weird, I'd done it basically exactly what my dad done. I didn't find out until I'd done it. But even with like the first business that I set up on my own, like printing, my dad done that. I was like, why didn't you tell me that? I've literally followed your footsteps, Dad. I was like, this is mad. Left school early, hung about with the years above. I was going like raving at like 13, 14. Not 13, 14 was my first rave, yeah. But I had no reason to be going down the path I was going down. I had no reason to. But this is what I was saying to Jordan from St Giles Trust. I'm like, in the rural areas, it doesn't matter where there's people that have got stuff going on at home, and everyone's got something going on at home, even those that look like there's not. There's always something, and they might be wealthy, they might have mental health going on. It might be like there's all different ways you can look at it, but there is still people out there that hasn't got much going on. And I've always compared myself with other people's problems. You say, I think it was you that said that's quite a bad thing to do. No, it might not have been you, but to compare, I make myself feel better when I think there's always someone worse off. And that ain't always good to do because you've got to deal with your own problems. You've got to sort of become at peace with those rather than, well, there's always someone else in the world that's going through something worse than you, Max, like sort your life out, like what you're moaning for. But going back to what I said to Jordan from St Giles Trust, I said there's people out in these areas, like I grew up in this area, and there's people out in these areas that get confused and get, not brainwashed, but they see something as a fantasy and they look at the music videos, they watch Top Boy and they watch certain things and they want to grow up to be that roadman and that gangster and live that life. That was pretty much me. And then I started hanging about with the people that I needed to do that. People up in Luton, I was going to Luton to pick up certain things. I was just getting into that, but I didn't need to. I didn't need the money. It was just because I wanted to make some more money, and then I was doing things and I thought it was cool. And so I can answer for my experience and stuff, but there's so many different ones. Like Shaun was saying earlier, behind closed doors, there's, again, no one knows. Like, so those types of people, there's me with the ADHD, I've got support. There might be someone exactly the same with the mental state as me and with the additional need. It's not an additional need, it's just something that makes me a bit lively. It could just be a number of things, yeah, it could be.
I just to kind of bring Shaun in here, I wondered kind of, Max talked about like paths and, you know, there's certain conditions that need to be in place either to be an addict or go down the wrong path. What do you remember about yours that might have been contributing factors?
I think a contributing factor for me was the fact that, you know, I used to pick fights with the big kids to give me a reason to cry and be sad. So people wouldn't really know why I was sad. But I got to a stage where I became sort of almost immune to the beatings.
Numb.
Yeah. You know, and then I kind of switched it around. I developed a reputation of being like the tough guy around the way. And I've always had what I consider to be a very good moral, you know, centre. So on the streets, let's say, if someone was being mistreated or picked upon, I was kind of like the John Wayne character that came in and kind of dealt with the bully. And then I developed a reputation for that. And I liked the fact that people liked me for that reason. They didn't, you know, I wasn't the fighting guy that was the bully, and because they tend to not be liked.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the acceptance of that, but the people that I was coming into contact with were drinkers and drug addicts because of the path I went down. And it was, you know, eventually I became a drinker and a drug addict.
Yeah.
So my route was I've come from a dysfunctional family to a group of people that are kind of accepting me for being a bit of a lad around the way, let's say, and eventually I was introduced to whatever substance it was that was being taken at the time. And then obviously I liked that.
It's weird because you said about the acceptance and of the group of friends that you felt accepted with, so the alcoholics and the drug takers and stuff. So you liked that because they welcomed you for who you were, similar to when you was doing the treatment program with Adam. that feeling of being accepted for who you are. It's the same feeling. You've got that same feeling that's got you through that. It got you into it, then got you out it as well, because you've got now with a group of people that are not doing drugs but have done it, drunk and been addicted to alcohol and stuff. But again, that acceptance, it all comes down to the acceptance, doesn't it?
Which is an interesting word to use when we talk about acceptance being step one. And actually, the thing that you're admitting or you're having acceptance of is sort of the thing you need as well. Like being able to be accepted by other people. And, you know, a lot of the treatment was based around like your acceptance of yourself as well, because that was the thing that was damaged. You know, you talked about the shame and, you know, this image that you built around your centre self was the thing that people were drawn to.
Yeah. When I was drinking and using drugs and committing crimes and living the life I lived, I liked the fact that people kind of came to me and sort of rallied round to back me up. And I think when I came into the rooms, I was almost immediately, I think, one of the more vocal people on the group. I always had something to say, put it that way. And I don't know if I made sense all the time.
I remember it being quite from the heart. It just seemed like you'd got to that point where you had nothing else to lose.
Yeah, 100%. And I think because I'm now around, because in prison, most of the people in prison are the guys throwing the tyre, you know, and they come into ADTP on day one, they're still the people throwing the tyre, you know, but comes last day on the 6th week, they're the guys that say, hey guys, put the tyre down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because they've worked it out, whatever it is they need to work out, they've worked out. But I kind of did that. And when I was on the streets drinking, using drugs, committing crimes, I liked the fact that I was popular. I liked the fact that people came to me. I liked the fact that everyone knew who I was. In prison, I got that for all the positive reasons.
Yeah.
And the more I did it, the more I kind of, it became who I was. You know, that was my identity in prison. I wasn't the convicted murderer who'd done X, Y, and Z and, you know, all these years in prison. You know, I did something like 210 months. It's a long time. But the last couple of years was probably the most beneficial to me and you know, and as I said earlier on, I went and sat on my first parole board and I lied my way through my parole board. And on the one that I eventually got out on, there was, you know, the judges and all that, they was, you know, I remember a question they put to me, if we put a condition of no drinking on your licence conditions, on your release conditions, how would you feel about it? And I might have been considered a bit flippant, but I said, I think it'd be a waste of your paper because I'm not drinking. Because I'd worked it out, I'd had 3, 4, 5, 6 years of living in the style of life that I live now. You know, all good, positive. Obviously, I wanted to get out of prison. But if I'd stayed in prison, I would have continued to do what I'd been doing already. You know, working on me and helping others.
Yeah.
Interesting that when you're talking earlier about living the life and doing the crime and like almost at the time seeing that you like it, when I was speaking to the friend that I was talking about earlier, when he's like, because his business sort of going downhill, he like I said, he's falling out his family, and I sort of, this was like the last time I spoke to him, and one of the things that he said is like, just like with the drugs and stuff, he's like, I love it, I love doing it, like making money, and he actually said he loved it, and I was like, at that point I was like, I can't even help you anymore really, because you're up here and I'm trying to bring you over here, and it's not gonna. So I suppose, yeah, so I can see how you got a lot from doing mentoring and bringing people to your way of seeing, which is good.
I think not only do you need to want to, I don't know, people say you need to want to change, like, as well, but also I reckon they need to have the opportunity. You can say, yeah, you need to want to change, but if you're still surrounded by all those people that were in that first network, and that's your day, that's your life, and you're living that life of crime, drugs and alcohol, and same with me when I was mixing in that circle, I had to break away from that. But again, not many people will have, like, I had a baby turning up like any day soon or whatever, do you know what I mean? So I had a woman that was going to me, like, she really sort of sorted me out, but not everyone gets that opportunity. Not everyone will get that mentor role or someone to guide them through. So again, going back to the mentoring chat we had with transitions, just giving someone that opportunity, that little bit of time a day, and sort of guide them. They may not always accept it, and this is like back to your mate as well. May not accept it, but even just like sticking with it and sort of planting a few seeds here and there, I think that's all you can really do.
Yeah, that's literally what I was trying to do. So yeah, I think maybe it's just a thing of showing people like different paths, so like different paths that they can take to make like positive change. But I think he was just under a lot of pressure to make money because his business was failing, and had a family, so he had kids as well, which is for me like, but it's easy for me to say because I was just thinking, you're crazy, man, like why are you going down this route? You had a job, like life was.
I was going to say, is his business failing because he started going down the drug business? Is that why his actual business is failing, because he's putting all his time into the drugs and the drug business?
I think it was the addiction which had caused. So like, I think he was seeing quite a lot of money coming in, so like he was using that money for the wrong things. So then that caused that. Then I think that led to like depression and stuff like that with him as well. So then,
well, because you're going to come down one day, and the thing is, you can do as many drugs as you want, and you can do it every day. But I remember, like, I think I might have said this to you. I've definitely told Jack about this before, but cocaine, for example, like, it's such a sociable drug. People take that drug because it makes them talk and gives them confidence in situations. Also makes you off your head and be able to fight like a lunatic, I hear. Like people that just do it to become numb and all that sort of stuff. But it starts out as a very sociable drug. And I've seen people go full circle, and myself being one of them many, many years ago. And it's like, you see people that take that drug and they take it in from a place of like, yeah, we're going to get some gear, we're going to do something, blah, 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 chatting. A few years down the line where they've been on that drug hard, it's gone full circle. Now they had some, they can't talk. They can't even get the words out. All that stuff.
Hands are moving.
And they're uncomfortable. They're not confident no more. Where they used to be all lively, now they're just sitting in their room doing it. And it's like, you started doing that to become sociable, or because it made you feel more confident and sociable, and got you out of those. And just give you the ability to go up and chat to random people and all that stuff. But now it's put you in a hole that you can't leave, and you're dependent on it, and you've just lost all your money. It's a horrible drug.
It's sad, man. It's sad.
Going back to sort of the subject around people being ready, and the certain conditions that need to be in place for people to be able to change. With yourself, Shaun, after you'd got like a decent amount of recovery, you must have seen it on the programme where you were looking around the room and going, that guy's way off. Or, how did you cope as a peer supporter with the guys that you felt needed to change and that they were in trouble but hadn't quite got there yet?
I guess I just had to put myself in their shoes when I was them and people were telling me, I was reacting the same way. There were a few incidences in the room that I opened up about my offending, and I remember some guy referring to me as a legend or something like that, and I wanted to launch across the room and smash him up, because I was so angry that, I've just poured my heart out. I've talked about probably the one most serious thing that's happened in my life, and accepting my fault, my blame, it was wrong, to be told, nice one, mate.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of very quickly go, he's not ready.
Would you have responded the same way if you were still in that circle of where you felt good for doing the things that you was doing that weren't necessarily the right things? So when you was in with the crime and all that stuff and you wasn't banged up, if someone would have come up and said, a legend for doing whatever it was you're talking about,
I would have been calling myself a legend probably.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah. So again, so you've had that whole sort of journey that you're not even the same person almost that you were. You're not, because people obviously change. We often talk about taking different paths, and don't just get stuck in the sense that whether it's a career, behaviour, the people that we surround ourselves with, like people get tunnel vision at some point and think, oh, this is it. There's nothing else for me. I'm going to be this for the rest of my life. It's rubbish, absolute rubbish. There's living proof right here. We're talking to Shaun right now, but we've come across many people in the past that have chosen different paths or set out to go on one path, and something happens. But there's so many in there. Like you look at any which way we can go. And
I was thinking as well of like that sounded like a teachable moment, I think they call it, where you've had that visceral reaction to someone calling you a legend, as opposed to the old days where you would have welcomed that. And I wondered if like a part of you sort of reflected on that moment of like, blimey, I'm different. I don't know. Was there something in that as well?
Yeah, probably. I was just thinking there as Max was speaking about, you know, when I was in the programme that was meant to be for 6 weeks and I was there for 3 years, I got to the stage where I used to keep it to myself. I never voiced it, but I used to take great pleasure in day one guys saying, I'm not going to change, you won't change me. And I used to, because I was there, I did that, you know, and I used to think, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Challenge.
You know, and I used to always try and tackle the guys that were the popular bad boys.
It's no different to what we do on programme, is it?
You
I'm
know,
sitting here thinking,
and the guys that would go, I'm not doing this, I'm only here to get the course done, so I've got a tick in the box, you know, sod you, I'm not going to change. And I used to, I became good friends with a lot of these people because of the changes they made.
Transformations.
You know, and I used to, you know, I used to look forward to, you know, the manager at the time, or Adam, would call us in a couple of days before the start of the new like bunch, and we'd have like a little get together, let's say, and I knew most of the people in the prison. You know, the jail we was in, I think there was over 1,000 people there, and a lot of them were from where I grew up.
Yeah.
So they, you know, I'd have people come, oh, you all right, Shaun? And who's that? Oh, you know, my dad. You know, because I'm a lot older. You know, I'm nearly 50.
Some tales to tell, I bet, from them prison days. It's like, again, we see movies. I can only imagine what it's like, but obviously, again, we work with young people. Just sort of, I don't know how many years it's been now. Sorry, Shaun, you say since you've been out?
7.
It's been 7. So prisons have obviously changed again massively in 7 years, but I don't know.
Seemingly not for the better, from what you're suggesting.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Well, this is what I was going to say, because I've seen a couple of documentaries. I can't remember what they're called, but there's that drug in there that's hit the prisons rife, spice. Apparently, like it was
just coming in when we were there.
And it's like when you see people under the influence of that stuff. I've seen the documentary on the homeless, all on spice, and then prisoners all on spice. It's just like that ain't a place that I wouldn't want to go to prison anyway. I'd definitely not made for it. I wouldn't have lasted a year, 2 years. I remember first getting arrested, absolutely bricking it. But that was just through fear of what people have said. But then you hear all the glorified stories. Oh, I've got a PlayStation, I've got a phone, I've got this. And so-and-so, was the artist that you guys listen to?
I won't say his name, but apparently he made a load of money being in prison, like more money than he could
Why
have
don't
made
you say his
out,
name? Huh? Why don't you say his name?
It's popularising someone that's doing something illegal.
Because he's almost like a friend of someone that's in my family. So.
Oh, it's that guy. I think there's more than one though. I think there's a few people
There
that have been
probably is
in.
more than one.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Yeah. But no, so you hear all the sort of glorified stories and it's all good and rah, I can do this, I can make money, I can take drugs. But surely it's not a nice place,
and
is
the thing is, everyone that I speak to says, I couldn't have done that. Well, I couldn't have done it day
you
one.
had to.
You know, and it's like, you've heard the phrase, birds of a feather.
I've seen the programme.
Birds of a feather flock together, yeah? So you're coming in through the reception. You know, the first thing in any prison, in my opinion, in this country, you're going to get asked by another prisoner is, do you take drugs, mate? You know, and if you say yeah, that's probably where you've kind of got it wrong. You know, because you're now in this little clique. You know, but if by some strange miracle you don't take drugs and you're in prison, you know, you're gonna find people just like you. You know, and they're gonna bring you in a little bit tighter than the drug users will. You know, so I'm not suggesting you go to jail, but you know, you adapt very, very quickly because it's you have
survival.
To. Yeah, you have survival.
I was going to say, if you don't adapt, you die. Surely is that a bit
I think
strong?
it's like more like human nature. Like you just go to people that are like you.
Yeah.
I think if it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but then with your skins, like
Right,
so
so-
you want to be careful because if you make the wrong choice and stuff, I mean, like you go
Nah,
pick
you're right.
the wrong
The
group.
best thing I can compare it to is schools. So like when we go into schools, like don't matter what school we go into, we see the same groups of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So like you know who like the popular lads are.
Well, that's
you
what
know,
made me laugh when Shaun was saying about the
you'll know who
cool ones,
like
yeah.
the what we call maybe nerdy kids. You know who like the footballers. Like you just they're all in the, and every school we go to, they're in the same clique. So I can imagine if you go into different prisons, they're the same people, just different faces.
But what do we
doing
do
the same
though?
things.
That's similar to what Shaun was saying he does when he was in his groups. We go to the ones at the back that are giving it all that, and we ain't doing this, we ain't doing that. We get them on board. We've got the whole lot.
Yeah,
pretty
exactly,
much.
yeah.
And that's what made me smile when he was talking about that, because there's a lot of people that will just do our program as well just to please. You was talking about when you sat on the
Tick boxes.
the board, the probation board,
Parole board, yeah.
parole board. Sorry, yeah, probation board. We get a lot of students that will take part because their mum has asked them to, or their dad, or the teachers. But the main reason is because they believe that they need to do it in order to get to where they want to get to, or to tick boxes for the teachers and to get their grades and go on their CV and stuff. But it's not until the end of the program. So you've got the first week, the second week, the third week. The first week we say to them, like, you did at the end of this, like we're doing 30 hours worth of volunteering. And like, no, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. They're there just for the gold. They just want to take part, get the certificate on their CV. They don't care about anything else. They don't want to give back. But by the end of that third week, they are all over it. They all want to volunteer. Don't matter how big they are. Billy Big Boots and Jack the Lad, they're all doing it. And you sort of balanced out all these different types of people to then take part and give something back and feel good for it.
Yeah, and
It was the same kind of mindset with the program as well. We knew that we had like 10 or 12 guys coming in, and the feeling that the odds were against us from an addiction point of view. We always knew we weren't more powerful than the addiction, but like there was a sense of like, we'll just get them in. Do you know what I mean? And by the end, you know, I suppose statistically, we always thought, say in a group of 10, 3 would nail it at best. You get maybe 5 that were like a bit shaky, might sort of stay out of jail, might stay clean for X amount of time, but they'll be back. And then the rest will just like, would see them as soon as they're out kind of thing. That was the kind of statistics that we felt. And we didn't feel bad about that. We actually felt like quite good about that, because that was still an element of success, because like I say, the odds were so against us. But there's this sort of feeling sometimes of, you've still got to give it a go. You've still got to try. There's every chance. There might be, like you said, some of the guys that were like, they ain't changing me. And the satisfaction you get about seeing the light bulbs go off and they're starting to click. Hang on a minute, I do have a problem. You know, this realisation that happens during, that's only 6 weeks. It's actually quite a short period of time, really. But we stuff so much into that with the step work, and then ultimately what you were suggesting about, you know, the moving on and the carrying the message. In the fellowship, we talk about carrying the message. You know, you've got recovery, and you owe it to yourself to give it away, to keep it. You owe it to yourself to be able to help other people. So there was an element of like, you know, I said earlier about rock bottom. We saw the program as like, this might be someone's rock bottom, but if we can get in there and raise their rock bottom, essentially what we were trying to do, so that they didn't have to go down so far and have that misery and lose the jobs and the family and the you know, lose your livelihood and your freedom and all of those things. There was always the hope at that point, which is kind of why we valued you so much as a peer supporter, Shaun. Was, for me, there was a sense of, and it must have been because you'd hit rock bottom, but you were just on board from the start and you nailed it all the way through. You went with every suggestion, kind of model client, if you like. You know, some were a bit more resistant, and it's fun to kind of work with those, but also it's fun to sort of work with the ones that just go with everything that you suggest. And you've seen the benefits of that. You're out of jail now 7 years. There's got to be a connection between your willingness to go with whatever was in front of you and get to that stage where I don't necessarily think the goal was to get out of jail. The goal was to just live and be sober and have a nicer life, it seemed, more than anything.
100%. I don't think I could have, you know, I there was no more bounce in me, put it that way. I was hitting rock bottom a lot in my life up till then. And I think I just stopped bouncing and I stayed rock bottom. And there's a phrase in the rooms of, Dad might be able to help me, but face down in the gut and still looking down on people.
Yeah.
You know,
looking down on people from the gutter.
Yeah. And that's where I was. And it was a conversation with someone I knew who was already in the program, Group 1. And I was seeing changes in this person, and I love this person with all my heart, you know. And I thought, I want a bit of that, and that was a motivation. And he's doing equally as well, you know. And I think it was a case of people used to stroke my ego and tell me what I wanted to hear, in the same way as I would do that with others, and parole boards and probation officers and ADTP staff and people like that. But eventually I started to go, nah, you know. He told me things, the group told me things, Adam probably told me things that were bang on. And it was, instead of pushing back and saying, you know what, you're wrong, it was a case of, do you know what, you're spot on right. And then it was, I'm so glad I said that. You know?
It's almost like when you said you want a bit of that, when you see your mate that was doing it, that was in group 1, and that becomes almost like an addiction. You get that little bit of feeling, that sense of like, I want some of that looks good, and then you get some of that, and then again, so that's almost like we're all addicted to something, and I think it's about being addicted to the more positive things, isn't it? Because no matter what, you take away anyone's exterior, look beyond the closed doors, whether it's caffeine, alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, porn, gaming, everybody's got an addiction, I believe. I mean, I might be wrong. This is just my opinion, not the opinion of Hear2Listen, but I just do. I think if you take away and pull away at the seams and that, you look at somewhere, someone's got an addiction in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, and like the addiction side of things, like I say, was always something that we were up against, but lost my train of thought. Do you know what I was thinking and why I'm struggling a little bit with my train of thought? Is it okay if we just have a break?
Yeah,
well,
actually, before we do that, can we just have a little chat and see what we brought in? Let's tell everyone what we brought in. We'll go around the room for our little food.
Brought it, okay.
Food. What did you bring?
I bought salad.
Is that it?
And chicken and bacon.
Oh right, there you go. So
hummus.
Just salad.
So, and the reason I wanted to have a break is because I'm absolutely dying for the loo.
Oh, right. So I won't keep you talking.
Yeah.
All right, we'll call it a break. You'll find out what we got in our lunch boxes after the break.
Yeah, when we come back. What I'd like to do is sort of go on a little bit more about, you know, the here and now and you know, where Shaun's at. And
that last 7 years, I think that'd be.
Yeah, man, for sure.
100%.
We'll see you in a bit.
In a bit.
Well done, guys.